By 1890, many of America's largest cities were dominated by immigrants. These newcomers came from a range of countries, but they all faced the same challenge of adapting to a new American way of life.
Eventually, this period from the 1880s to the 1920s will be called new immigration. It's larger, but it's also shifting from what the previous period, which was more northern and western Europe, now to southern and eastern Europe. And the two biggest groups are Italians and Jews coming from Russia and from other parts of Eastern Europe. And they come with different cultures, different languages, different religious traditions.
These immigrants often settled in already booming urban areas. By the late 19th century, more than 80% of residents in cities like New York, Chicago, Milwaukee, and Detroit were either foreign-born or had foreign parents. Most newcomers settled wherever they had family or ethnic ties or employment.
The nice thing about the cities was there was work. There was ready work available. Now, there were terrible working conditions, terrible living conditions, overcrowding, but there was work. Once one member of a community had settled, they would write to their friends and family and say, come on over.
The immigrants arrived in droves, often establishing ethnic enclaves within large cities, such as New York's Little Italy. As they clung to many of their old ways, immigrants were simultaneously pushed to become Americanized.
Americans say, well, if we're going to accept immigrants, they need to assimilate almost completely, as much as possible.
Unlike earlier waves of immigrants, young foreigners arriving at the turn of the century had a new place to pick up the English language and adopt American values: public school.
By the 1880s, 1890s, public schooling is pretty much mandatory everywhere. And so there's this apparatus by which young immigrants will be converted into Americans. They'll be taught English, they'll be taught civics, they'll learn about George Washington, they'll learn about the Constitution, they'll also learn about intangible cultural things like order and discipline.
While many older immigrants clung to their homelands through newspapers and theater productions in their native languages, many children quickly traded former traditions for a new American way of life.